Okay, so thank you and welcome. And I will be as quick as I can because I know everybody's got lots of other things to do, including probably watching premiers, press conferences and things, but I promise this will be more interesting and will be better news than that. So what we're going to cover, as the headline says, is the wage subsidy, but there are a bunch of other wage subsidies, as you probably know. So we're going to talk about the 50% wage subsidy, but we're also going to cover quite a few others because the government's actually providing quite a lot of financial support for businesses that have had a reduction in turnover and affected by lockdown, but also everybody else. And most people don't realise they're eligible to claim it. So the way that we're going to do this is I've got a dozen or so slides. I'm going to quickly go through them and explain to you what it is. You can get us to help you with this at the end, or you should have enough information that if you want to do it yourself, then you can. You are welcome to ask questions along the way because we kind of live and breathe this stuff, but I know that it is really confusing if you don't. So please fire in your questions. And if I don't answer them during the presentation, I'll make sure I stay on at the end and answer until everything's been covered. So what we're going to cover is the 50% wage subsidy opportunity that has been around for a few months. Most people don't realise that everybody is eligible pretty much except for government departments, or every business, I should say. There are some conditions and exclusions on that, so we'll cover those. There's some other funding that's linked to that. So once you get that wage subsidy, that unlocks other stuff. And then there are also, as you probably know, there are different state-based wage subsidies. So depending on which state you're in, I know in New South Wales at the moment, if you include this program, you can get up to 90% of your wages rebated. In Queensland, you can do the same for a small number of workers. So I will step you through those. Now, why are we doing this webinar? A couple of reasons. It's our area of expertise. So I have lived and breathed this stuff for a while, and some of my colleagues. We're claiming it ourselves. I've now got all my employees on this wage subsidy, and it means we've got 12 months of 50% of their wages covered, $28,000 per person. It's nice to have that certainty and security for the next 12 months. The other reason we're doing it, of course, is at the end of the session, you might get us to help you. We charge for that, but we don't charge unless you get the money. So it's pretty much risk-free, and I'll explain that before we finish. And the other thing that's kind of really got a bee in my bonnet is that, like anyone with these things, it's the big companies that are claiming it all. Big companies have got resources to do this sort of thing, and little companies don't know where we start. So there are kind of a limit to the number of people that we can help at once, which is why we thought we'd do a webinar, save time, get all the information out in one go. So let me just give you a little bit of background as to how this came about. Do we remember JobKeeper back in the day? It seems like so long ago now. And JobKeeper was coming to an end, and as we've seen, it's looking like it's not going to come back, although this presentation might not date well. Let's see what happens. But states have brought in wage subsidies instead to replace JobKeeper. But JobKeeper was great for people who need it, but there were some significant flaws in it. So as we know, employees were paid for not working, and there was no real value add other than keeping businesses alive and in a holding pattern. It didn't grow any skills for our workforce, and we can see now the consequences of that. And this funding is for training places, but this is important. It's for training. It's not just for tradies. So it's basically any employer that's willing to put an employee on an approved course can get this funding. And there are a whole range of courses that you can do. And I'll show you a short list of some of those in a moment. Now, beginning of October last year, government went, let's make some changes. JobKeeper's ending. Let's bring in the wage subsidy, but this time let's make it a requirement that staff get trained to get the wage subsidy. So they put $2.8 billion into that and said, we'll fund 100,000 training places. And probably what they had in mind at the beginning was that, employers would hire young people and they would train them up, and it would get, kids off the dole and that sort of thing. But of course, the law of unintended consequences, things never quite happen the way that governments plan for them to happen. What ended up happening was that 70,000 of those places got taken out by big companies in the first month. So by the end of October, they went, this isn't what we want, because initially you could put every single employee you had on Existing workers, new workers, didn't matter. So big companies just put thousands and thousands of people on in one go. So they tightened up the criteria around existing workers after about 3 weeks, and I'll explain to you what that is now. There are still some opportunities for some of your existing staff to get this wage subsidy, but the main opportunity now is in new employees. But new employees is a pretty broad definition. If someone's been casual with you for 20 years and you make them part-time, then they still count as a new employee. So I will explain that as well. Federal budget this year, May, they uncapped the program because they went, it's working really well. So they put 170,000 more places up, which is an extra 2.7 billion. And at the moment, they've extended the deadline for people to start this program through to March next year. Now, we never know, of course, things changing so rapidly at the moment with any of this kind of stimulus stuff that we just don't know whether it's going to be finishing next week or whether it's going to get extended for another year. Who knows? So take it while it's there. Right. So the program, you might have heard of it. And if you have, you've probably got some preconceived ideas. So please bear with me because you might be surprised. So you may have heard the phrase boosting apprenticeship commencements around lately. That is the wage subsidy. Now, it's not necessarily about apprenticeships and it's not necessarily about commencements. It is about boosting. That's about it. But because they had to roll this out really quickly, like any of these kind of subsidies and incentives that are around at the moment, they've used the existing apprenticeship and traineeship scheme and the apprenticeship and traineeship services to distribute the funding. However, it is for a lot more than just apprentices. What it is, in a nutshell, is if you're a business, you're a charity, you're a council, doesn't matter which, you can be reimbursed up to 50% of the wages for anybody that you enroll in an approved course, up to a maximum of $28,000 per person per year. And it's for 1 year. Pretty good, hey? It's paid over 12 months. It's capped at $7,000 per quarter. And this one is paid after the event. So every quarter you put in a claim, you give them the pay slips for the last 3 months and they pay you back half of it. There are some other wage subsidies around at the moment that are paid more frequently, and I'll quickly touch on those if we've got time. And it's for new employees, pretty much all your new employees, unless other than the CEO, and some of your existing employees as well. So the key condition is that they have to enroll in an eligible course, but I will give you some examples of where they can do a course online. They can do something that's very work related. So you're not sending them off to college and doing essays and exams and all that sort of thing. The other really good thing, and this is something we've just been working on in the last couple of weeks, is that you can claim it in combination with the current state wage subsidies, which means you can get potentially up to 90% of wages back for workers. We have hired some new people based on that, because why wouldn't you, basically? You get a year's worth of person. So if you've got new projects that you're thinking about doing and you want to put people on it, but it's a financial risk, here's a chance to actually transfer the financial risk to the government for 12 months, which is why they're doing it. They want to stimulate the economy. So this is this is one of the government documents that just talks about the boosting apprenticeship thing and how they changed it, $2.7 billion. They talk about apprentices and trainees, and the trainees is the key part. Pretty much there are so many courses that you can do and be counted as a trainee. Right, so it really is a win-win. So since the whole pandemic thing and the lessons that we've learned from other countries, hopefully, the governments have found a way to help us with boosting employment, upskilling employees, making sure that businesses can be sustainable and adaptable. So the legislation, the intent and the letter of the legislation is about trying to get this money out to people. We're not finding loopholes, we're just finding grants that exist and making sure that people actually know about them. So who's eligible? To be more specific, any employer except for state and federal government. So if you're a charity, if you're a business, if you're a council, you're still eligible. Now, I know most of the people that we invited to this presentation today, most of you are in like construction, civil, architecture, that sort of thing. So I will try and focus the examples that I use as much as I possibly can on those industries. If you're not from one of those industries and you're here, that's fine, still listen. But if there is something specific that you want to know about how it applies to you guys, then just fire away and ask questions. Anywhere in Australia, it's not state-based, it's federal scheme, any kind of industry, any business size, except for a sole trader, sorry, there's nothing for you. But if you want to hire somebody, then you can claim it. any of your full-time staff, and actually I need to update that because it's also your casuals and part-timers, if you are willing to upgrade them. So if you've got casual, been there 20 years, they've been doing 60 hours a month for you regularly. I'm not the industrial relations expert, you want to check that, but you may as well make them part-time instead, because they're probably technically part-time anyway, and they could come back one day and hit you up for some annual leave and some sick leave. So you may as well have control of that. And as long as you're averaging 60 hours a month, not a week, then you can claim this for them. So if they've been casual, you turn them into part-time, then they count as a new employee. If they've been part-time and you turn them into full-time, they count as a new employee. And if they've been full-time for less than 90 days, and I'll talk about that some more in a moment, then they're a new employee. Australian citizens can get it. New Zealand citizens, if you've been here for more than 6 months, you might be able to tell by the sophisticated way that I pronounce my vowels that I'm originally from that mainland. So they're eligible. People with permanent residency are eligible, including professionals and experienced staff. So this is not just for juniors and it's not just for apprentices. As long as you're upskilling people, they can get it. Now, I am working from home and there's somebody knocking on my door. So if I get interrupted in a moment, please forgive me. Hopefully they'll go away. So money, I just did a quick calculation for you to show you what this is potentially worth. So if you've got 5 people and you can put it on, even if you have to pay for the course, and we will show you in a moment how sometimes you can get free courses, sometimes you've got to pay, it depends. But even if you had to pay full fees for the course and you put 5 people on, you'd get $140,000 back from the government, and that would give you $111,000 or so back as your subsidy, effectively. So 10 people, you know, I had put 50 people on there, but I thought it was a bit ambitious. But the other thing to think about is that the payroll tax rebates, you get payroll tax rebates, you get work cover rebates, you get all kinds of stuff when you put people on. So it's not just that money, there's other funding as well. Now, there are different incentives. So for most of you, do you mind just popping in the chat where you are based, which state, because then I'll make sure that I focus on that. I think we've got a few people from Queensland, but if someone doesn't mind telling me, and I will talk to your situation. Sydney, okay, thanks, Judy. Queensland. All right, Queensland. All right, I might talk about Queensland and New South Wales. If anyone's from anywhere else, just let me know and I'll check that. So Victoria, okay, all the East Coast. All right, I'll try and cover as much as I can for all 3 of them. So a few just interesting statistics on claims before we go into that. 60% of people who have claimed it so far have not been in traditional trades. 40% are small businesses and 20% have been for employees over 35. And the industries that have taken it up the fastest are construction, probably because you guys are used to using apprenticeships and things, so you know how to use that system. Accommodation and manufacturing, which I thought was interesting. Now, I looked a month or so ago at jobs that were advertised, because I remember looking in the middle of 2020 and there were about 30,000 jobs or so advertised on Seek in the whole country. Looked a few weeks ago and there were 184,000 and 54,000 of them were paying over $100,000 a year. So as you probably know, I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but it's pretty difficult to get skilled workers at the moment. If you can get this extra 28,000 and you can either pay them a bit more, you can do whatever you like with this money. There are no restrictions around it. You can use it to pay them a bonus. You can use it to give them a company car for a month, for whatever you want to do. You can pay them a bit more, and you can also, put them on some courses. And a lot of employees that we talk to lately really do want to upskill and get more qualifications. And if their employer will pay for a course for them, which is basically this course is free to the worker, whether you pay or whether the government pays, the employer will support them doing a course. That's just going to be something that may help you attract workers. I know it's pretty difficult at the moment. So eligibility for existing employees, I will just touch on that first, because there are a few cases where your permanent full-time staff that have been with you forever can get some funding. And for you guys that are on this presentation, do you mind hopping back in the chat and just telling me what sort of business you're in? And I will make sure we focus on that as well. That would be awesome. Thank you. So for your existing construction, awesome. Thank you, Josh. That's what I thought. We had a few people here from construction. Great. All right. I will try and focus on that for you. So you guys will know if you're in construction, the whole apprenticeship system, how that works. Let me show you how you can use that apprenticeship system and get some additional funding. Concrete. Awesome. Okay. This is going to be really interesting for you. So there's an existing worker clause in this apprenticeship funding that says the existing worker is only eligible to get funding where they either go from casual to part-time or part-time to full-time, which I mentioned, or they commence in a trades-based Australian apprenticeship. So everybody reads that and assumes that a trades-based Australian apprenticeship is what you would think of, plumbing, carpentry, that sort of thing. But there's actually a 13-page list called Appendix I, which I'm happy to send to anyone who wants a copy, of all the courses that someone can enrol for and still be considered a trades-based apprenticeship. And I'll show you some examples on the next slide, which might surprise you in terms of what they are. So you might have people that are already tradies, and if you want to put them on like some sort of an advanced trade, then you will get a wage subsidy for them for a year. So now's a really good time to do that. But you might have people who are not tradies, but could do one of these other courses, which I'll show you in a moment. They've basically got to be doing a Certificate 3 or Certificate 4 level qualification off the approved list that leads to specific jobs. So sounds complicated, but we'll make it uncomplicated. And here's an example of one. So this guy, existing worker, you'll see on the left-hand side below that second black bar, says existing worker trainee, Certificate 4 in civil construction supervision. So been there for years, doing civil construction, team leader, doing a supervisor's course now and getting a wage subsidy and getting the course paid for. So existing worker examples. Now, we're dealing with government, so the list might change next week, but right now, today, if you've got someone who's looking after HR, sort of officey stuff for you, you could put them on a Certificate 4 workplace health and safety, and that is eligible for a wage subsidy. That is listed on that Appendix I trades list. If you've got an office manager and you're in New South Wales or WA, you could put them on a Certificate 4 in environmental sustainability, which is basically a Certificate 4 in business with a bit of an environmental sort of spin to it. If you've got anyone working in civil, and the definition of civil for this is you've got to be constructing or destructing something other than residential housing. So I know, I think we've got someone here with a concreting company. If you're a concreting company, if you're building roads, if you're building tunnels, any of that kind of stuff, you can put any of your existing supervisors on the Certificate 4 in civil construction supervision, and you can get the wage subsidy for them. We work with a few different training providers. The one that we recommend for this one is very practical, very sensible. As their director says, they have lots of big buttons for people to click because they know that most of the people that they're working with as their students are people who are on the job. They're not computer people. They're not going to sit and write essays and stuff. So they can even do their assessments by talking to someone over the phone if they have to. So the training providers that are linked to this are pretty sensible. Now, new employees, a lot more courses to choose from. This is just a small sample of them, but you could put any new office person that you hire, you could put on Certificate 3 in business, for example. You could do project management, leadership, human resources, work health and safety, all those sorts of things. You can do all the ones on the previous slide for new workers as well, of course. And most states have got funding for some of these courses. So a lot of states have funding for Certificate 4 level courses. Even if you can't get funding for the course, you take it out of your 28,000, you're still going to be 20-something thousand dollars ahead. So there are a whole lot more courses. What we normally do for people is we say, tell us who you've got working for you, how long they've been there, what they're currently doing, and we'll map that to what the most funding is that they can get. That's not very good English, is it? And what the courses are that they can do. So the process that you go through, like we've been calling them trainees, but they're not trainees, they can be professionals. There's some stuff to do to prepare. Once you've got this approved, actually claim the money is the easy bit. It's like if any of you claim JobKeeper. It's actually just send them fill out the form, send it off once every, it's 3 months for this one, but getting approved takes a bit more work. So this is what you need to do. If you want to do it yourself, we'll send you the slide and you can work your way through it. Otherwise, we can help you if you want us to. So look at what courses suit your business and look at what courses are approved in your location, because of course each state has got different courses. Think about any new staff that you want to take on, any skills that you would like them to have. It might be there's someone that you could hire, but they've got a gap and you could fill the gap this way. Look at which staff you'd like to give them the opportunity to upskill and get a wage subsidy for them. Now, start dates and cutoff dates, check that. Rachel, my colleague who is co-hosting this but has muted herself, which is there in case my internet drops out. Hi, Rachel. Rachel was talking to an employer this week and we worked out that he was eligible for $48,000 for this employee that he had hired. And then we checked the dates and we were, actually, do you want to, I don't know if you're there, Rachel, unmute yourself and tell us, was he 12 days too late or something?
Yeah, it was so sad. There were two different things we could claim for. There was the boosting apprenticeships, 28,000, and we were a week short of that. And the other was the $20,000 back to work incentive, I think it is. And we were 12 days short on that.
Oh, that's sad. Thank you. So, yeah, so he missed out by a couple of weeks. So that was a Queensland funding of 20,000 and a federal funding of 28,000. He would have been 48,000 better off. He's got a bunch of other people that he's putting on, but that one was sad. So check your dates. And if you have anybody that has started, so some of them have a 12-week cutoff and some of them have a 90-day cutoff for new workers, and 12 weeks is not actually 90 days, it's like 84 days or something. So if you have got anybody who's started in the last 84 days, which sitting here at the end of August would be what, June, July, August. So anyone who started from the beginning of June, you can backdate this. So talk to us really quickly and we'll make sure that, because if you've got your first stage of your application in, it doesn't matter if you haven't finished it in time, you just need to have flagged it and then you'll be eligible. So then check what qualifications you want, make sure your staff meet the criteria to do those qualifications, make sure you've got somebody to supervise them, which is why your CEO can't do it or your director, because they are under the traineeship system. So they do need somebody who can be their supervisor and sign off that they're competent at stuff. Check out there's other state-based wage incentives, and there are also other course incentives. So there are various free courses around at the moment. If you're in construction and in civil and you're in Queensland, either your business is in Queensland or your workers live in Queensland, which at the moment with the borders, I guess it's got to be the same thing, hey? But anyway, then you can get substantial subsidies. You can get the wage subsidy, but you can also get CSQ, Construction Skills Queensland, will pay for most of the course for you as well. So figure out what you can claim, choose a training provider, make sure the training provider has got funding. So there's three lists. There's the list of courses that are eligible for the wage subsidy, which is a federal list. There's the list of courses that are eligible to be considered to be a traineeship in your state, 4 lists actually. List of training providers that are allowed to deliver those courses as a traineeship, because that's got to fit into that system. And then the list of training providers that have got funding for those courses. So match those 4 lists up, make sure you get the most funding, choose an apprenticeship service to actually do the sign up. That bit's pretty straightforward. There's only a handful of them in each state and they'll come out, sign up your person, give you the piece of paper to claim the money, organise that sign up, they lodge your wage claim and then lodge your claim for the other incentives. So they are different. The state claim, you have to do different paperwork. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Now we can help with that if you want us to, or you can take the slide and work your way through it. I think we've pretty much covered everything on that checklist. So the easy bit is actually claiming the wage subsidy. Once you're registered, you just get a text message and an email every quarter from the authorities that say, reminder to claim your subsidy. You go in and you fill in an online form and you upload the pay slips for your employee for that quarter. And then within 14 days, you get the money into your bank account. Now, I haven't checked. If anyone got any questions, please fire them away. We've only got a couple more slides to go and I want to make sure I've covered everything. And we've got people on this and yes, it does work. We get money. It's quite nice. Now, a couple of questions that people do often wonder, and I'll preempt those before you ask them. What if my employees don't get the qualification even though they tried? So you will still get paid. There are some requirements around that. So you have to be sort of in good faith trying to do the qualification. So as long as they're chipping away at it and they're in, reasonably regular communication with their training provider, then the training provider is not going to kick them off the course as long as they're doing their best. And you actually want the course to take the whole year, because if they finish the course, the wage subsidy finishes. So you may as well let them take the time to have the whole year to do it and get the wage subsidy for the whole year. If they leave halfway through the year, then you don't have to pay it back. You just get what you got for that time. Good question. Someone's just said, what if I have staff in 2 states? Then you can claim them both. So you can get the federal wage subsidy across the board, and then you can claim state-based funding for each state. So actually, I haven't got a slide about it because it's a relatively new thing, but well, not new, but it's new that we've discovered that you can combine the two. So if for those of you that are in New South Wales right now, sorry about that, you probably know that if you've lost 30% of your turnover, or if you're in what they have called the list of highly impacted industries, which I know construction is on that list, you can claim 40% of all of your wages from the state government paid fortnightly until the lockdown settings end. So you should be claiming it anyway. I hope you are. And if you're not, please do, or talk to us and we'll show you where to go and claim it. But you can also get this 50% from the federal government at the same time. So your 40% will end when lockdown ends, but your extra 50% will go for the whole year. So you can get 90% for now, and then it will drop down to 50% when the lockdown comes to an end. So that's for New South Wales. For Queensland, if you are in most of Queensland, so anywhere in regional Queensland and some parts of southeast Queensland, but not Brisbane City, not Gold Coast and not Sunshine Coast, but if you're in the out west, if you're in Caboolture, Moreton, that sort of thing, you can get $20,000 per person if you're hiring someone under 25. There's some criteria around that. I can show you the details, but you should be able to get, in a lot of situations, the 20,000. You can get 10,000 if you hire somebody out of disadvantaged groups, but your under 25s can be just anybody as long as they've not been working for a few weeks. That's the main criteria, but you can get that as well as the 50%. If you are in remote areas, I know Elisa, my colleague, said that I think we've got someone on the chat, might have been you, Madonna, from out Clermont or something. You can also get, the employee can also get a relocation subsidy for moving out to you, which I think is about $6,000. Hello, Dominic. So you could get they could get the 6,000 plus you could get 20,000 from the state government, plus you could get 28,000 from the federal government. So it starts to add up. Oh, plus if they don't have any qualifications, you'll get another 4,000 from the state government when they start, 1,500 when they start their course, 2,500 when they finish. Anyway, sorry, I'm making it sound confusing. It's really not that confusing, I promise. Another question that we get is, are we going to have to spend a lot of time on this? Like, do we have to be supervising them, training them and everything? The supervisor just needs to be able to sign off that says, the RTO will be saying, the training provider will say, we've done a subject about communicating in the workplace. Does your person communicate in the workplace? And you have to be able to say, yes, they do, or whatever the subjects might be. And we would refer you to training providers who don't require them to take time off from the workplace. I mean, you do have to give them some time to do some assessments, but they'll be workplace-based things. So they'll be hopefully things that they're doing anyway, if you get the right course. Okay, question, if eligible, can I put all my staff on the program, or are there limits on staff numbers per organisation? For the 50% wage subsidy, you can put as many people as you like. You can put all of your staff on if they qualify, as long as you've got somebody there to supervise them. So there's some ratio issues there. For the Queensland grant, it's 4 people per organisation for the 20,000. For the New South Wales 40%, it is unlimited people. Victoria has one as well called Jobs Victoria Fund, where you can get $20,000 or 10 to 20,000, depending on if you hire somebody new. So in Victoria at the moment, if you take on new workers, you can increase your workforce by 20%. If you've got 5 or fewer staff to start with, or you've got no staff, you can still hire 1, that's the 20%. And if they are under 25, over 45, female, a whole bunch of other things, you either get 20,000 or 10,000 for hiring them, as well as the federal subsidy. And so that one's capped at the 20%. Queensland's capped at 4, Victoria is uncapped at the moment. If you have any more questions, drop them in because we're just about to finish. So if you get us to help, this is how we would help. This bureaucracy, I assume, is not your core business. Don't know why it's ours. We must have done something in a past life to deserve this. So I'm presuming that most of you are busy, either because business is booming or it's busting. There's really not much in between at the moment in COVID times, is there? And, you know, for most construction-related businesses, if you're not in lockdown, then you're pretty crazy busy. If you are in lockdown, you're probably still crazy busy trying to figure out what to do. Now, you are absolutely welcome to do this yourself. But I do keep running into people whose applications have been rejected because they were coded wrong, or because there's all sorts of codes that you have to put in the form in the right places, or because they've been given bad advice about how to lodge their claims, especially for existing workers, because that's a little bit tricky to get it through. Even the apprenticeship centres, because there's so many people doing this now with all this $2.7 billion, they've been hiring hundreds of new staff, and you won't necessarily get good advice from them, unfortunately, because they're new. They're not trying to do the wrong thing. They're just new and inexperienced, and they don't know. So especially the existing worker stuff is a little bit tricky. So what I suggest you do is that get us to do the setup, like your accountant would have done for JobKeeper for you if you're eligible. And then once a quarter, you just need to upload your pay slip. So you can carry on with your core business. When the first grant money comes in and gets into your bank account, then you just forward 10% of the approved amount to us, keep the rest, and just carry on. So we only get paid if you get paid. So no risk guarantee, and don't pay until you actually get some money, because it's one thing being told you're going to get money, I know, but you actually want to make sure you get it. So where to from here? The first step would be for us to do a quick assessment of your eligibility, and quick being the key word, because if you've got people that have started in the last 3 months, let's capture them quickly and make sure you don't miss out on the 48,000 like that guy this week. We can send you a form to quickly fill out to just tell us a little bit about your current employees, or we can interview you over the phone and gather that information, whatever's easier. It's probably easier for you to do the form, because then you can go into your payroll system or whatever and grab it. After that, then you can decide whether you want to proceed, and whether you want to do it yourself, or whether you want to get us to help. If it's a really simple one, we'll just tell you, and you can just, if you've got time, then you can just do it yourself. If it's a bit more complex and we know that we'll be able to get you more money than you'd be able to get for yourself, then we will tell you that. Now, if you want to email us, we can give you a call. We're all working from home, as you can see. Hopefully my cat's not in the background. So Emma, Alyssa, if you are on the call, do you want to pop your phone number in the chat if anyone just wants to call you directly? But otherwise, if you want to email her on Alyssa, ALYSSAW@sagestrategy.com.au, she can shoot you out that form, and you can send it back to her, and we can work it out quickly. So she has just popped her number in there, 0451 733 418. Thank you very much. And yeah, if you can email people the form, that would be great, Alyssa. In fact, if you want to email it to people who attended, if you'd like us to just shoot it to you, we can do that. So any more questions just before we wrap up? I hope that was useful. I hope it wasn't too confusing. I'm trying to kind of wade through the tangled bit. If you have any questions afterwards, just shoot us a message, but otherwise message us, call us, email us, whatever. We'll send you out a form. We'll figure out if there's anything that you're even eligible for, and then you can decide from there where to go. I hope that was helpful. Thank you very much for coming. I will talk to you all later, and yeah, happy press conferencing or working or whatever it is that you're doing at the moment. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.